Alexandra Eala explains why the Australian Open is so special to her ahead of her first main draw. Alexandra Eala's breakout success in 2025 has earned her a first-time ever place in the Australian Open main draw. Eala impressed at the ASB Classic to begin her 2026 season, which has earned her world number 49 in the rankings ahead of the Australian Open. Her huge ranking climb over the past year means she has automatically qualified for the first Grand Slam of the year. The Filipina is relishing the chance to play her first Australian Open main draw, and she's explained what she finds special about the tournament. Alexandra Eala has great memories at the Australian Open. Eala has fond memories of the Australian Open, despite not making the singles main draw in her last 2 attempts. The star has tasted success at the first Grand Slam of the year in doubles, though, as she won the junior doubles title alongside Priska Madeline Negrohu in 2020. The Australian Open was probably one of my first junior Grand Slam, and for me to be able to win the junior girls doubles with a good friend of mine was such a treasured memory. Eala is a huge fan of the Australian Open and called it special when appearing in a video alongside Rafael Nadal for Kia. Actually, what makes it special for me is the energy. I feel like people have so much fun there. There's so much diversity. It's sort of my home slam, and I have a lot of good memories there. The 20-year-old will find out her first ever Australian Open main draw opponent when the draw is made on the 15th of January. Alexandra Eala's next match confirmed before the Australian Open. Eala might be looking forward to the Australian Open, but she has to get through another high-profile tournament first. The 20-year-old is set to play the Kooyong Classic in Melbourne ahead of the Grand Slam, and her first match is set to be against Donna Vekic. Eala knows all about the former Wimbledon semi-finalist, having beaten her in the first round of the ASB Classic recently. The Filipina will play the exhibition event alongside high-profile talent including Alexander Zverev, Nick Kyrgios, and Alexander Bublik. The star will play Donna Vekic on Tuesday, the 13th of January, as she continues her preparations for the Australian Open. The Australian summer has a particular kind of light. Bright, unfiltered, and honest. It reveals everything: the sweat on your brow, the doubt in your mind, and the courage it takes to step forward anyway. For Alexandra Eala, that light has always felt familiar. As she prepares to walk into her first Australian Open main draw, Melbourne is not just another city on the tour map. It is a place where her dreams first learned how to breathe. Long before the stadiums filled with thousands of spectators chanting her name, Eala arrived at the Australian Open as a teenager with a racket that felt almost too big for her hands and a belief that was still learning how to stand upright. She came not as a star, but as a junior, carrying the quiet hopes of her family, her coaches, and an entire country that was beginning to see itself in her forehand. The Australian Open was where everything started to feel real. Eala has often reflected. It was here, on the blue courts of Melbourne Park, that she discovered what it meant to compete on a stage that mattered, not just to her, but to the world, where dreams first spoke back. For many players, Grand Slams are destinations. For Eala, the Australian Open was a conversation. Every match spoke to her, asking difficult questions. Can you stay calm when the pressure rises? Can you keep believing when the score turns against you? Can you imagine yourself belonging here? In 2020, those questions were answered in the most unforgettable way. Eala captured the girls' singles title, etching her name into history and becoming the first Filipino to win a junior Grand Slam singles championship. The trophy was heavy in her hands, but the meaning behind it was heavier still. It was proof, not only to herself, but to young athletes back home, that the impossible could, with patience and courage, become possible. That victory didn't just give her confidence, it gave her clarity. Melbourne became a landmark in her journey, a reminder of what she is capable of when preparation meets opportunity. A place that feels like home. What makes the Australian Open special, Eala explains, isn't just the trophies or the headlines. It's the feeling of being welcomed. The fans in Melbourne have a way of embracing new stories, of leaning in when a young player steps onto the court with something to prove. They listen. They watch closely. They care. For a player coming from a country without a long tradition in professional tennis, that support matters deeply. Every clap, every cheer, feels like an invitation to belong. The Australian Open doesn't demand that you already be a superstar. It allows you to grow into one. There's also something about the rhythm of the tournament itself. The early starts, the relentless sun, the hum of practice courts from morning to night. It mirrors the discipline Eala has lived with for years. Trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy, she learned early that excellence is built not in moments of glory, but in quiet, repeated effort. Melbourne, with its unforgiving conditions, rewards exactly that. From junior courts to the main draw. Stepping into her first main draw at the Australian Open is more than a career milestone. It is a symbolic crossing. The same grounds where she once chased junior points now ask her to compete as a professional, against players she once watched on television. There's excitement, yes, but also perspective. Eala understands that this is not an ending, but a beginning. The main draw does not erase the years of learning that came before it. It builds upon them. Every early morning practice, every long flight away from home, every loss that stung more than it should have, each one has led her here. The Australian Open reminds me of how far I've come, she says, but also how far I still want to go. Carrying a nation with grace. With every appearance on a Grand Slam court, Eala carries more than her own ambitions. She carries the hopes of young Filipino athletes who now see tennis as a path, not a fantasy. She carries the pride of a nation that recognizes her not only for her talent, but for her humility and work ethic. Yet what makes her journey compelling is not the weight she carries, but how lightly she wears it. She plays with freedom, with joy, and with a deep respect for the game. The Australian Open, in many ways, reflects that same spirit, competitive, global, demanding, but still open-hearted. A full-circle moment. As Eala steps onto the court for her first main draw match, the noise of the crowd will blur into something distant. What will remain is the feel of the surface beneath her shoes, the familiar bounce of the ball, and the quiet certainty that she belongs here. Melbourne will not just be watching a young player begin a new chapter. It will be witnessing a full-circle moment, a junior champion returning as a professional, a dreamer returning as a contender. That is why the Australian Open is special to Alexandra Eala. It is not just where she won. It is where she became.